Good evening. We're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch and IG Live. Coming to you tonight, we're going to be joined by Krista Weltner. Krista's been on the show before. I've had the pleasure of interviewing her, sharing her story as an author, illustrator, artist. She's done a ton of different projects. I totally recommend following her. We're going to flip things around tonight, and she's actually going to interview me. But I do want to get into some of her work and her projects that she's been doing. If you have questions tonight, please drop us a line. You can always email us at the branch as well. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How's summer been treating you?
It's been pretty good. I've been having a lot of migraines lately, so I don't know what that's about. I think it's the weather. I'm blaming the weather.
Oh,
Just the heat, but maybe not. I don't know.
well, hopefully that clears up as we get into fall.
Yeah, hopefully. So are you excited to be interviewed and let your audience know a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in how this will go, so that'll be fun.
Well,
Uh,
thanks for allowing me to do it.
no, thank you for taking the time to do it. Really appreciate it. Before we get into your questions, I was telling the audience in the intro that I'd interviewed you in the past and that you're an author, an illustrator, an artist. I recommended following you. You're doing so many cool things. I didn't know if you could maybe shed some light into some of your recent projects that you have going on or that you can share with the audience. I know that some of your stuff is top secret, but what you're comfortable with before we get into it.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you said, I'm an author illustrator, and I might have some good news on that front coming very, very soon, but I probably can't talk about it yet. But if you follow me, I'm hoping to get some more literature out there for dyslexic kids, especially in the picture book age. So hopefully we'll have more on that in the next year or so. But other than that, I work full time in the stop motion film industry, and I finished up a project. I finished up doing a project with Netflix last year, and I'm working on my second feature film with Leica, and I don't know when that one would be out, and that's probably all I can say about it. But they're both fantastic places to work, and um, oh, I also have, if you're in Toronto, if anyone's in Toronto, I have an art piece that's going to be displayed there in a building as part of a project it's called Display. So it's DIS
I'm writing this down.
slash PLA. Look at the dyslexic who can't remember the name of the
Yeah.
organization, but it's a project for people with disabilities, and they are projecting artwork onto the side of a building somewhere in Toronto. And I just found out that one of my submissions made it in.
Yes, that's awesome.
So also, if you follow my Instagram, you'll see that too, I suppose.
Very cool. Well, exciting endeavors, and definitely recommend following you. I've enjoyed the art that you've been putting out, and excited for all your endeavors and how this all comes together.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited to learn more about you. You can tell I'm just teaching.
Yeah, I'll let you get into it.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't even know. I know that you're dyslexic. We've worked together a little bit on some different projects, but I have no idea. When did you find out that you were dyslexic? Were you a kid, or was it later in life?
No, so I was a kid. I was fortunate. I was diagnosed when I was 5 years old in the eye doctor's office, of all places.
That's so young.
Very
Oh my
young.
God.
The they'd given me glasses, and I'd been having headaches from the glasses and they weren't really working the way that they were supposed to, I guess. And the eye doctor, I went back to the eye doctor and she's like, I want to run this test. And she did a test and then she was like, I'm gonna get your mom. And so I had that like that feeling in my stomach, like I knew I'd been caught. And she explained to my mom that it wasn't a problem like seeing the board, it was recognizing what the letters were.
Oh, wow. Okay. So do you remember that happening, or is that just a story your mom has told you, or?
No, I remember it like vividly. Like I always describe it like if you know when you're younger and you like take like 10 cookies out of the cookie jar and you're not supposed to, and then you get caught doing that and like that pit in your stomach, like that's what I had in the eye doctor's chair.
So you felt it was wrong even in that moment, even
Yeah,
before you really knew what it was.
totally.
Wow. Did so you must have been in kindergarten or maybe even before that.
Yeah, I think it was like I ended up doing kindergarten twice, so I think it might have been the first go around in kindergarten.
Okay. You know, it's funny. I went into kindergarten, I think I was 6, and my mom always says she wanted to keep me home an extra year, but I think I wasn't ready for school. Yeah.
That was me too. That was the same. I can relate to that.
What were your early years like in elementary school, and did you have like tutors and things, or what was that like?
Yeah, so I had tutors. I had tutors all the way through high school and into college. So that was something that stayed consistent. My younger years were, I'd go to school, I'd get picked up it like after my spelling test in second grade, and we'd go across the bridge to occupational therapy and work on the fine motor skills, like because things were like challenging for me, like holding a pencil or tying my shoes, like those things were difficult. So did a lot of that. I eventually outgrew occupational therapy, but then it was always like go back to school from occupational therapy, and then I was lucky if it had like a practice or something to break up the day, like sports, and then it was on to the tutors at night. And the tutor thing just stayed all the way through high school and college. I needed it all the way.
Was it what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna ask, so was dyslexia, was that your only diagnosis, or did you have any other learning challenges going on?
No, so it was only dyslexia. It
Mm.
was diagnosed severely dyslexic. So all the, you know, all the challenges that come with that from,
All the symptoms all at once?
yeah, all at once. Like they're like, it just hit all the time. Um, but it was only that, I guess it was that, they, and then the fine motor skill type stuff. So the sensory processing, I think is what they referred to it back then.
Hmm. How did that affect your like decisions after school and deciding what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, so I always kind of gravitated to sports. Not like I was a like great athlete or anything like that, but I just loved like moving and being outside and like playing. And so sports was kind of my always like my go-to. And so I wanted to do something with in my life. I wanted to do something from a career standpoint with sports. And I think that always kind of guided a lot of my decisions that I made in life, good or
So,
bad.
did you end up going to university?
Yeah, so I graduated. I was kind of told that even graduating high school was going to be a challenge, but I did graduate. I went on to University of Southern California. I did a master's in communication and started working in collegiate football. And then while I was working, I got a master's in communication management from USC. And then I was fortunate to get a chance to go up to the University of Washington, which was a lot closer to home, and work there. And while I was working there, I ended up getting my master's in business administration from Seattle Pacific
So you have two masters?
too.
That's impressive. Wow. Was that was that an extra challenge, do you feel like, with your dyslexia?
In some regards it was, but it also made sense to me because my schedule was always school on top of school. So like when the workday ended, or it doesn't really ever end in college football, but when it came to kind of a breaking point, having a going to class made sense to me for some reason. And so that routine was kind of built into my life all the way through. So continuing that made sense. And I do have a passion for learning. I don't necessarily love like the school environment, but I do love learning. So there was always that, I guess there was always that tension.
Yeah, I always had that too. It's yeah, it's very strange because you are very curious, yeah,
Yeah,
and
same.
you want to learn and know more about what you're interested in, but then you're stuck in this environment that's just really restrictive. Yeah.
Did you, I always felt like I could never really show what I knew or what I was absorbing in the classroom. I don't know if that
Yeah,
was,
I always felt like what was inside of me was so much more, and I was so much more capable than what I could show.
that's, yeah, that's it. That's really well said.
Did so when you were younger, I mean, you were into the sports and everything. Which sports though were you interested in?
Yeah, so growing up, I did kind of did everything. I did soccer and basketball, and in high school, it kind of filtered into track and soccer only. And then I'd always used running growing up to like when I was frustrated with school, I would just put my tennis shoes on and go out the door and run until I couldn't run anymore. And usually it was just a few laps around the neighborhood. But that grew, and I was kind of still using running when I was in college. And then when I got into the professional world, running in college has kind of been this thing that I gravitated towards. I did my first marathon while working in sports, and also while going to school. It was a nice relief for me.
And now you run marathons quite frequently, and you raise money for organizations for dyslexia. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's been
that's amazing.
yeah, it's been a really nice connection to have because as hard as it was for me, I was fortunate to be diagnosed. I was fortunate to have tutoring and a family that had the means to support me. And I recognize that the students that aren't getting that are at such a detriment, and it really affects our BIPOC communities and our marginalized communities at greater length. And so to be giving back to an organization that is supporting all students and has a mission until everyone can read is really important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've read those statistics and it's startling. And, I'm here as well, just like you. I came, from a very privileged household and my parents were able to support me and um, came from that we were identified in the first place. So many people go undiagnosed because they just never get that initial help and never get that initial diagnosis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's it. Yeah, they,
And I think you probably know more about this than I do, but I think that isn't it that Black and brown children are more likely their misbehavior is more like they're more likely to be coded as like misbehaving rather than there's a learning problem here.
yes, that's definitely an issue
Yeah.
that's going on in our systems, the way that it's set up right now. And there's some really startling statistics, and the Coding Dyslexia Oregon and Books Not Bars has put out some really good research and numbers around those, and why it's so important that we address education on a systemic level.
What's Books Non Bars? I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah, so they are a group here in Portland, working with marginalized communities and kind of you know um, building building educational support systems for students. So they're doing a lot of good work out here.
Wow, I'll definitely have to look into them.
Yeah, look into them. They headlined a event that Decoding Dyslexia put on, that IDA Oregon also supported. So there's a lot of collaboration and community involvement around it.
Excellent. And you've also written a book, yes?
Yeah,
It's called Running the Distance. I always want to call it Distance Running.
yeah, distance running. I like that. Yeah, no, it is called Running the Distance. Yeah, the book is really about my journey and how running or how dyslexia helped me prepare for the World Marathon Challenge.
Hmm.
And the idea is that it's just kind of sharing the stories that I think so many students are going through. So it's just really giving to that message that you're not really alone in this, and that we've all been kind of fighting this battle.
Mhm.
And we all have so many, I think our stories are so similar to one another, but we don't realize it because we're not talking about dyslexia, and we're not talking about the challenges with it and some of the shame that comes with it as well.
Mhm. And you, what was I gonna say? I don't remember. That's always my problem. So where can somebody look
Oh
at
yeah.
when can somebody find your book?
Yeah,
That's
so good question. So it's on Shop IDA, which is International Dyslexia Association's bookstore online. You can also get the audiobook through Google Play, and there's a link on the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branches page. And all the sale proceeds are going back to these organizations. So it's all going back to support dyslexia initiatives through IDA and IDA Oregon.
that's amazing. What was that process like for you writing a book as a person with dyslexia?
Yeah, I kind of have that question for you too, because it was hard. It was a hard process. I wrote a lot of it when I was training for the World Marathon Challenge. I would train in the morning, I would write, and then I would train again. And so having that time after running to like reflect and like start kind of putting thoughts down was really helpful to my process. But it was a hard 2.5 years to get that book launched in a place that people could actually read it and understand it and take it out of. I say it had to be translated from dyslexia language into to English. But I think the other thing I really want to just mention is Videla, which is basically a multimedia organization in Orlando, based in Orlando, really helped with a lot of the artwork. Their team with Ryan and Miguel and Nishan really put a lot of work into it. And then with the audiobook, Nicolin was really helpful to that process as well.
Did you read the audiobook? Was he the vocal
Yeah,
performer, I
I
guess?
did. I did do the reading for it.
Oh, you
So yeah. So and
did?
that was a whole nother journey on it.
Okay.
Reading out loud is not something that I'm super confident with, but I thought it was important to read my own book. And so when you get it on Google Play, it's my voice.
You know, I have thought about the other day, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but I follow some different educators and some people are doing things with dyslexia. And I thought about the other day, I was like, it would be a really good like TikTok video dyslexia awareness trend to have us just read the definition of what dyslexia is out loud because I don't know about you, but I reading out loud, it is so obvious there's something else going on.
Yes, I have the same. I can relate, but that would be kind of a cool video to do. Maybe for like Dyslexia Awareness Month, we partner up and read the
Yeah.
definition on do my
Just
first
a bunch
TikTok.
of just a bunch of grown adults struggling to read some really simple sentences. It'd be great.
It'd be it'd be seriously hilarious.
And then we
Um,
can say yes, and we have you can say, and I have 2 master's degrees. Here we go. I'm going to read this. You know,
well, and then you have a master's degree as well, so we can start putting
I
together. We can start putting together our masters, and that'd be really cool.
I always joke that I make people call me Master Krista, but I never have.
You should
But
totally make. I'm gonna
you
start
could make
calling.
people call you Master Jared.
No, I think that's a great name. Like that's a great artist name for you as your.
Master Krista. I don't know. I think it's a little too pretentious. I don't want to claim to be a master, but.
How was writing the book? How's it been authoring your own books for you? Has that process been challenging?
It's been a challenging process, but picture books are, sorry if you can hear the people next door.
Mm.
Picture books tend to be between like 500 and 700 words ish. So the writing aspect wasn't as big of a challenge, and coming up with ideas certainly wasn't a challenge. I had a million ideas, and I have 3 or 4 different variations of my picture books. The biggest challenge, I think, was just approaching people with the idea, approaching publishers with the idea. My initial book was all about the positive aspects of dyslexia and everything. And they just, all the responses I got back were, well, we don't understand what dyslexia is. So we don't understand. Like, it was like they needed to know the basic part of what dyslexia is before they could delve into the positives and the happy part of it. So
Yeah.
it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge creating a book that um, is appealing to mass market people and people that might not know anything about it, but yet also still it being beneficial to people who are dyslexic or kids that have just found out they're dyslexic. So yeah, that's been just balancing that was the biggest challenge, not actually like writing, but when I was in school, writing papers and writing my final thesis book was a challenge. So I do know that.
I can relate to the school papers being a challenge for sure.
So did you, when you were writing your book, were you already involved with the Oregon Dyslexia Association or was that before?
Yeah, so so I got involved with the organization before. I got involved with the organization right after, pretty quickly after I signed up for the World Marathon Challenge. I wanted to really partner with a group of people the race could be bigger than just about the race. I really wanted it to be about something that I was passionate about and helping to support kids, and that's how I stumbled upon the IDA. They had a program at the time called Team Quest, which is like run until everyone can read, and that like made a ton of sense to me in my head. And then through that, I was fortunate to connect with the Oregon branch and kind of start partnering in different ways.
And then eventually they got you to come on board as you're the vice president, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
recently, yeah, became the vice president of the board. So it's
And what all can you tell me about that? What kind of projects are you working on with them and
yeah, for
what
sure. Well, very fortunate. Danielle Thompson is our president, and she's one of those community leaders that just really feel fortunate to be on the same team with and support. But a lot of the things that I do as vice president is really just trying to connect our branch to all the other organizations out there that are doing amazing work, whether it be like the Decoding Dyslexias or the Books Not Bars or the Lucy Project in Miami, Florida, like just kind of being an outlet to connecting those groups and seeing what's going on. And um, we do different events that I, get to help with, like Arts and Minds, where we were able to showcase yourself, and then some other artists as well, and really just trying to bring different groups of people together to talk about dyslexia and make it more of a comfortable conversation, and highlight some of the positives that come with it as well as some of the challenges. We have a adults professional dyslexia network, Jesse, who has been a tremendous leader in our community, and she's based in San Diego at the time, but had this idea and brought it to us, and we've been able, through the work of her and Danielle, been able to put this group together of people from all across the country are joining in, and it's really cool to hear their stories and challenges that they have, and as well as their successes. So
I've been meaning to join those. You have a Zoom group that
yeah, it's a
meets.
Zoom group meet. You
So
should
can
definitely.
anybody jump into that if they're dyslexic or if there's teachers on here that might want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely open to everybody jumping in. It's been mostly dyslexics that are part of it. I think we had one educator join um, for one of the sessions, but it's a free group, and it is available for everybody, and it's a chance to really broaden our dyslexia community. I mean, I remember back in school, I didn't know anyone that was really dyslexic. I didn't have that connection, and there was, is the funny thing is there was somebody that was a year older than me. I just interviewed Betsy Ramsey last week, and her son was a year older than me, someone that I completely admired and was dyslexic, but we never knew that about each other, like going through school.
Yeah, I hope that's changing now. I think that people are more open to talking about differences and things like that. But I don't know, it must be it's got to be a rule that they can't they don't want to reveal anybody's learning difference or disability or anything. Because I feel like the same, I was definitely in school with other kids that had challenges like myself, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And we were pulled out and put in a class together. We're all in a class together. And looking back, I'm like, we must have all been dyslexic or something was happening where we all needed to be having the individual education together. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was a challenge for sure. I think Danielle put the link to or the link
Oh,
is available for the adult network in the bio for at Dyslexia You Are Not Alone. So if you go to that Instagram handle and check out the bio, the link to sign up for the network is there. And then I was gonna say the other thing that Oregon has done really well is we have the student panel, and they go in, they meet with other students, they talk to teachers and educators, to really shed a light on it. But it's been a chance for them to build community as well and hear stories of, whether it's the substitute situation or having to popcorn read out loud or whatever those challenges might be. There's that camaraderie that they're able to rally around.
and your student panel is made up of young dyslexic students who are teenagers, right?
Yeah, teenagers. Yeah. So and it's cool. There was a conference here. The international conference was here in Portland in 2019, and I just remember there was a student who wasn't part of the panel and had kind of first meeting, and you just see members from the student panel just gravitate towards these kids and pull them in and make them feel part of the team. And I think that's really special. Danielle also mentioned that through the Oregon branch, we have the Running the Distance Scholarship Fund, where we are giving a scholarship, where we give scholarships out to students that are either going on to a 4-year or 2-year or even a professional trade. We're trying to support the community at large with that.
That's fantastic. Uh, oh, I need to plug my phone in. Hold, please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Can't go out.
Yeah, you gotta have the power for sure.
Um, see if I can balance this. Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties. There we go.
We're all used to it right now after being
Do
virtual
we have
for
any
so.
questions? Do we have any questions from the crowd?
Let me see. I can scroll here. It sounds like somebody is in on our TikTok project of reading the definition, so we're getting awareness
Oh,
now.
cool. Okay, I'll have to get a little bit more into TikTok and maybe get that started. Because we're coming up on the, isn't October the Dyslexia Awareness Month? Maybe we should be preparing for that.
Yeah, we need to start preparing for that. Maybe it's a October challenge. Maybe we could get people from all over to start reading the definition online, and we can create a video from that.
Sure, why not?
And it sounds like you're going to get some shout outs to people in Canada about your artwork that's going to be displayed. So people are really
Oh,
excited
cool.
about that.
I have like 2 friends in Toronto, so I'm counting on them to go take a picture of it for me because I don't think I'm going to make it to Toronto.
Yeah, we need a picture of that. That'd be cool. I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
But
hopefully.
I think that is.
It's actually it is related. It's a still from my short film, which was about dyslexia, so it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
can you, for people that don't know about your short film, I think it'd be cool if you could just talk about that for a minute and the name of it and where people can go and check that out.
Yeah, sure. It's called Partially Compensated. If you're already on here, it's probably easier just to follow my Instagram and find my website, um, because there's a video of it on there that you can watch for free, and feel free to share it. I've had a lot of different teachers share it in classrooms, and it's used as kind of an educational tool to talk about what dyslexia is. And it's inspired by my experience and my growing up with dyslexia, and the whole idea behind it was that I really wanted to show people how it felt to be dyslexic, not necessarily what dyslexia was. So I'm really focused on the emotions that I was experiencing, like anxiety, isolation, confusion, of just like a child just learning what their difference is and noticing how different they are. So yeah, you can check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Danielle mentions it too. It's a powerful piece of art. I was gonna say, yeah, your ability to capture those feelings in a video, and then, as someone who's dyslexic, to be able to, I knew exactly like how that character felt. So I strongly recommend the audience go check it out. It's really good. And the artistry around it, not just about being dyslexic, but the artistry around it is so powerful and awesome as just a
Thank
piece of work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it continues to have a life, and it's going to be so strange for me looking back on it in like 20 years or something. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it's already starting to look like a distant memory or something, Like, did I really make that? I don't know.
That's so cool. And
But
then just,
I'm supposed to be interviewing you here.
I know you are.
I have questions about your occupation because you mentioned you worked at Nike. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so actually, Columbia. So I'm at Columbia
Oh, you're at
Sportswear.
Columbia.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
do merchandising and footwear for Columbia, and have been there for 2.5 years.
Okay. And you work with teams of designers, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I support I've been supporting Europe. That was like my main function, and then also doing some support for here at headquarters as well. So, but merchandising is really just, pricing the products and where we're placing them and working with the accounts and stuff like that. But it's really, footwear has always been something that's a passion of mine with running. So it's
Of
always kind
course.
of gone hand in hand. And yeah, really fortunate to have landed a great company.
Well, and I'm sure you get amazing perks. I mean, do you get free shoes?
On occasion, I'm not exactly sample size, so it's
Oh,
a little detriment, um, but no, it's a great place to work, and just it's amazing to have a supportive team to be around too.
oh, cool. Well, and do you get to go to Europe?
I did. So we a few years ago we sponsored an event that actually just took place at the UTMB, and so I was out there for that. We have a number of athletes that participate in that event, so it's
Wow.
yeah.
Cool. Where'd you go in Europe?
So it was Switzerland and Italy and France.
I've been to France. I've not been to Italy or Switzerland, but
Uh,
everything's on the list.
yeah, right. Where I was gonna ask, like, has your art brought you places to travel, or have you had inspiration to want to travel for some of your
Yeah, I
plans?
mean, it has. I actually started out, I was studying theater in college, and then when I got the idea in my head about puppetry, I had a professor who she helped me get a grant to go do like a study thing. And I went to Prague and I did a marionette wood carving construction course, which was amazing. It's called Puppets in Prague. If anyone wants to go, if you can go learn how to carve marionettes.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, I did get to go to Prague. I've been to France on another at another point. My undergrad had like a sister college in London, or not in London. I'm sorry, in the UK, but in Grantham, which is like this tiny little like countryish town. They have like this manor house where they only have like 200 or 300 students at a time. It's like I don't know. A lot of people say they went traveled abroad or they like went abroad for study abroad and they were in like most people were in London and it was like at a big university or something. This was like a very weird, different experience. But nonetheless amazing. Yeah. So when
Oh,
I was there, I made it over to France at one point. And I've been kind of all over the UK. So.
dyslexics in Europe. That sounds like a video, or that sounds like a movie.
Right. And then I actually recently I was talking to a man who I think I saw him on one of the Facebook dyslexia groups, and he was doing a study, and he needed dyslexia participants, and he had dyslexia, and he was studying. He was getting a PhD, and he was an art. What was it? I don't know. He was like an artistic. He was an art. He was an artist, but his PhD was in something else, and he was trying to study like creativity in dyslexic people, which is like
That
very cool.
that is really cool.
Yeah, he asked me a bunch of questions about the process, and I feel like even though you went like more the athletic route, you still are a very creative individual as well, and I think that a lot of dyslexics have that.
Yeah, I think we find ways to like use that, whether it be even, business or sports or art, like there's always ways to kind of use that creative element that maybe comes with it a little bit. I'm always reminded though of our students that, you know, we talk about dyslexia and people think like, oh, it's a superpower and it's great and it's positive. And I always want to dial that back a little bit because the students that are in it right now don't always see that side of it yet. And I think it's important to acknowledge the challenge of it. While there's still some positive things and light at the end of the tunnel, I think we got to recognize where we got to meet the students where they're at and then help them guide them through that process before everyone talks about the positivity around it.
Yeah, hammering home the message of it's a gift is kind of frustrating when you're 10 years old and you're like, how, I don't see how this is a gift. I don't understand. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's almost like, it's kind of like adults too, just wanting to make it comfortable
right.
sometimes. There are positives, and I do, as an adult, I can analyze it, my own experience, and know that there are. But
1000%. Yeah.
yeah. And do you feel like that's like detrimental?
I I don't think it's detrimental. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't actually know the answer to that, but for me, I think I'm really quick to want to get to the positive and want to get to the light side of things. And that's how my mind works. And I think there's a lot of great around that. It's just a reminder to me to kind of dial it back and acknowledge that it it's a process for people to get there and their own journeys. We need to recognize what each individual's journey is and work with students in that manner. I think just meeting, that's where I love like just meeting the students where they're at and then helping them kind of acknowledge that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but that they might be in the hard challenge. To me, it's very equivalent to an ultra race. Like if you're in the middle of a 100 miler and you're at 50 miles, like you can't start thinking about the end of like being at the finish line and having a cold drink. Like you're kind of like figuring out how do you maneuver inside this pain cave, and there's can be some great things that come from that, but it's kind of finding that balance.
Yeah, it's almost like the hard part is the beginning. The hard part is when you're trying to learn how to read and then trying to just do that for
Yes.
12 or so years. And yeah, once you're an adult, it's more like I feel like there's less challenges. I know adults have challenges in the workplace and stuff too, but
Sure. But
um
you've learned those coping mechanisms, you've learned the way to operate around it. So there's so much more skills and experience that you have as an adult versus when you're kind of just learning, yeah, like you said, learning to read or learning to write or like learning to piece it together. I can't remember. I mean, there were so many times where my tutor was trying to explain to me how to write an outline, and it
mhm.
it took 20 or 30 times before I actually understood what that meant and then actually how to apply it, just how my mind worked. Um, but then once you get there, it's really cool because then you're like, oh, that all makes sense now. Everything that the person was saying all along makes sense, but it's a process to get there.
Mhm. Yeah. What was like your major conflict in school? Like was that kind of your major conflict was just understanding what
I
they
think
what the, what they were trying to get you to do?
yes, that was the main thing. I mean, there's so many times where I was like staring at the paper, like not knowing what I was supposed to do, like not even having a clue of like what the directions were even asking or what the question was even asking. So it wasn't even the ability to like process the information. It was like, I don't know where we're even starting. And so that was always a frustrating point. It just felt like you couldn't really move. And then I'd see everyone around me like doing their thing, and I'd be like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be doing something, but I don't know what that is.
I would always just do like, I don't know. I saw school as such a system. I from a very early age saw, oh, this is a system, and like I just have to figure out how to beat this system in a way. And I would just like, I learned that, oh, if I turn in everything, my odds are better than if I don't turn in that one. Like if I don't turn in one assignment, then I've got an F out of 10 assignments. But if I turn
Yep.
them all in and they're all C's, then I'll be, and I don't know, I really thought of school in that way. So I was doing a lot of things like really half-ass. I was doing a lot of things just for the sake of running through it and turning it in and not really minding the mistakes or not really learning or absorbing.
It
I
actually
don't
makes
know.
a ton of sense though. Like if you throw out 1,000 things and you land 10 of them or land 100 of them, like
Yeah,
you're in,
odds. It's
yeah,
just odds.
just like
Or like I was really strategic about taking tests. How are taking tests for you?
it was always a time thing for me. I always needed more time because it would take me forever to understand what the question was asking.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I understood that, like recalling the information, like I had it all in, and I used rote memorization like
Me too.
yeah, like that was my only way through. And so I would spend hours and hours in my room going over flashcards. Like I memorized all my Spanish vocabulary using flashcards. And what the challenge with that is it was great, but I wasn't learning it. I was just like forcing myself to memorize every single detail in school. And that's a great, I guess, for discipline and like, you know,
Mhm.
that part of it. So I learned from that, but like it took away from that curiosity spot of like really trying to understand and work with content more than just like
Mhm.
what can I store in my brain and then push out on a piece of paper. And I just remember being like, if I had a test one day, I'd just be exhausted when I came home. Like I didn't have any energy to do anything else. Like I literally just put it all on the table or on my paper on exam day, and that was it. That's all I could do.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was a lot of emotional effort too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Um,
I was gonna ask, what was test taking like for you?
Test taking was, yeah, like I said, I was very strategic about test taking. Like I would I would look at a page and scan really quickly and notice which questions were shorter, like the sentence was shorter, so I would go for those first because I'm going to be able to read that faster or
Yep.
get through that quicker. And it as soon as I knew if I didn't know the question, move on, come back to it later. I would usually have an entire like grouping of questions that um, that at the end I would have 10 questions I didn't answer and then really quickly bubble them all in A or for my odds. Um, yeah, I think I'm ashamed to admit that I cheated a bit, well, a lot, not a lot, but I cheated sometimes in school. Um, usually in Spanish. And also with Spanish, and if you're a child out there or anybody else, like don't cheat, it's not good. It's it's better to get a bad grade than cheat. It's not something I'm proud of. I don't endorse it, but I did do it. But yeah, Spanish, I used to like write the words over and over again. Like I had notebooks filled with just the vocabulary, like over and over and over, because it was like I was training my hand to respond, and like I was training my muscle memory.
My muscle memory, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I had a lot of tricks to get around not actually reading. Like I would read the first and last sentence of every paragraph. I think I mentioned this before, but I would read the first and last sentence of every paragraph, or I would read like the first chapter and the last chapter. I would look at the back of the book. I think if if I had been more clever, I probably would have gone on the internet.
Yeah. I was gonna say I needed to
Yeah.
take your class. I needed to take like your study skill class. It sounds like that would make my life a little bit easier. Uh,
Yeah, and yeah, I just the main thing I needed was more tests. I will say this is interesting if there's any educators out there. I did have a teacher who I loved for history in high school, and I made sure every year that I had her because she was such an incredible educator. Her name was Mrs. Acker. If you're out there, Mrs. Acker, I love you. And she would offer like several versions of the test. I don't know if I told you this when we talked last, but she would, you know, we would have a test and she would have one version that was like multiple choice or one version that was like essay format and like another version that was like short answer or like the one I would always pick, it would say something like industrial revolution, like really vague. And then all you had to do was bullet point whatever you could remember, whatever you could spit out.
oh,
So
that's cool.
it didn't matter how it was because we put into a sentence, it didn't matter if it was chronological or if it was even like correct. It was just about getting whatever you had out. Yeah, she was an amazing teacher. To think about the time it would have taken her to grade all those different versions, you
Yeah,
know? But she was so passionate. Yeah, she was so passionate about teaching that I think
it's
she just wanted to get in there and just, you know, do us a solid, I guess, and provide us with several different ways of learning.
yeah, and like ways of showing how you can like how you express information or like how you're able to share what you know. I think that's so cool that and we do talk about that a lot with educators is like, you know, obviously there's grading systems and there's things that teachers need to do, but even giving a student an oral exam or having a conversation with a student about the material just to give them a chance to show what they know. Maybe it doesn't even impact their grade, maybe it does, but
Mhm.
I think just giving that time to a student throughout the year is huge because so often I think as dyslexics, we're kind of sitting on the bench when you have only a test or a paper to show what you can articulate. But if somebody were to like tell you to go, hey, go draw a picture of what you learned,
Yeah. Or
or
like how important are like extemporaneously what is it, extemporaneous speaking skills or something like
yeah,
oral
totally.
oral skills.
So
I don't know.
and I think that that can change a person's world because so often I think as a dyslexic person, you feel stupid or slow or dumb in the classroom. And those aren't true because we know that dyslexia and IQ don't go hand in hand at all. But to have the ability to express that is it can be a real game changer. It can really show somebody that, oh wait, they know more than a multiple choice test or a true false test where it's not really even about the material, it's about they're getting confused on the question.
Yeah, or we had like it was called integrated math. I don't know if they do that anymore, but it was like partway through high school, they decided we were doing integrated math. And it was all of a sudden, all of our math questions were in like Word, like you had to read a paragraph to understand what the numbers were that you needed for the math problem or something like that. And I think it was structured like we didn't have like, it wasn't geometry, algebra one year, trigonometry another year. It was like all mushed together.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. I don't know if I like, I'm not in education, so I don't know. And I'm also not an expert on any of this. But
Well, I think you're what is it?
I remember that
You have
frustrating.
that practical experience with it. So I think that's something to
I'm an expert at the student side of it.
that's important. That's important.
But yeah, I
Uh,
know too, like educators are up against it. Like that's a difficult job.
yes. And
That is a difficult job.
for the yeah, and you mentioned one that had a positive impact on you, and I just think I give so much credit to the educators, and you know, it's a challenge that we're all facing. I think dyslexics or parents of dyslexics have felt the pain of what their child or student might be going through, and it's really easy to want to get frustrated at the teachers my thought is to pause on that and to
Mhm.
recognize that if we can all be in this together, while there might be frustrating moments, but the more we can work together as one, it's kind of like
Yeah.
yelling at the person at the flight desk for your flight being delayed. It's like we're not on the same page here. So
Yeah.
I just hope, my hope is that it's more of a teamwork and more of an understanding that when it really becomes about the product, which is the students in this case, then it's everyone working together to kind of maximize that experience for them.
Absolutely. Well put. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the kind of our time limit. I don't want to go over because then it shuts off the video. But
Okay.
I
This has been
I
great.
yeah, one, thank you so much for taking the time and doing the interview. It's always awesome to talk to you and to share insights. I would love to have you come back on and interview you on your latest endeavors as we kind of move through the year. If you'd be open to it, it'd be great to have
Yeah,
you back on the show.
absolutely.
Sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I hope we have more news on that soon. We'll just have to hope.
All right. We'll definitely kind of keep connected and see where you go. But we're excited for you. Congrats on having your artwork displayed in Toronto. It's major.
Thank
And we wish
you.
you all the best with the book and any other exciting projects that you're working on behind the scenes.
Yeah, same to you. And yeah, sorry I thought it was Nike. I know it's
No,
Columbia. I got it burned in my brain now.
well, they're both Oregon companies, so that makes
Well,
total
and I
sense.
saw that Nike had a week off this week, so I thought maybe you were in that group, but
No,
anyways,
but no, it's great.
it's good talking to you. Sorry, I'm
Great time.
babbling.
No, you're great. Thank you so much, and it was as always awesome to talk to you.
You too.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.